hearing about some of the things that they did that might have been gray area, shall we say, in terms of legality. So I think at this stage, it's somewhat well known that I have a real soft spot in my heart, a real affinity for homologation cars, for very, very singularly focused race car for the road kind of cars, and for cars that have really colorful gestation. Their development and creation being interesting and often fraught with difficulty. The Saleen S7 falls squarely into that category. I mean, for people of a certain age, the Saleen S7, even for non-car people, the S7 occupies brain space. Again, non-car people of a certain age will always remember the movie Bruce Almighty when he is in that Speed Lab Silver S7 and he's sitting there at the wheel and just parts the seas and goes and takes off. Again, you don't need to be a car person to see an S7 and think Bruce Almighty. So the S7 has a remarkable amount of star power. But what a lot of people don't realize is just how rich, just how juicy, just how interesting the car itself is. Not to mention the story of Saleen, the car's creation, the car's existence. So the S7 was created by Saleen, which had built its reputation by tuning Ford products, primarily Ford Mustangs. That's what they were always known for. Steve Saleen's objective had always been to create his own supercar, but really it was to create a car that had the ability to compete at the top levels of international motorsport, which he had already been very, very successful campaigning Ford Mustangs and Trans Am and other associated series. And so the next logical step was to build his own car. And the involvement of RML is in the car's development is reasonably well known. What's so juicy to me about this car are the little details and the things that they did to get this car to exist. So I think that taking a step back and let's just go over the basic variants of the cars. You have first the S7R, which is the race car. Then you have the naturally aspirated S7s, which are the first road cars that Saleen produced. And the NA cars are, furthermore, the cars that homologated the S7Rs to be able to compete in international GT racing. Then you have the S7 twin turbos, which came out after the S7 NA cars. And then you have the S7 LMs, which came out over a decade later, way, 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 way after the fact. And for the intents and purposes of this discussion, that's almost like a different car. We're not going to focus on that. The NAS7s are, again, incredible juicy cars, because when you talk with the car's creators, when you talk with the guys like Billy Talley, who was really the godfather of that car. He was the head engineer at Saleen at the time and was really, really responsible for that car. You speak with Tony Salerno, who was running Saleen and keeping them on the rails at that time. They will describe, if you put an S7 NA road car chassis and an S7R chassis next to one another, the differences between those two cars are almost non-existent. When people talk about a certain type of car being like a race car for the road, an S7 falls firmly into the category of no, 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 no. This is a race car for the road. You have to mention in the same breath as cars like the 911 GT1, Mercedes CLK GTR, Jag XJR15, proper race cars for the road. And what's so cool about the S7 is that, like those other cars, it immediately communicates its race DNA the second that you start driving it around. Unlike those other cars, it manages, and it's really just a function of that it's newer, it manages to be a little bit more easily digestible and a little bit more accessible than a lot of than those other cars are. Those other cars are so pure and so focused, while the S7 is very pure and very focused, but is just a little bit more easy to consume and digest. But what's really fun about those cars, and is a fun thing when you start digging into the history of any boutique small volume vehicle, are the things that they had to do to make it work. And when you talk with some of the guys who were working on that program, hearing about some of the things that they did that might have been gray area, shall we say, in terms of legality. There are a few, and out of respect to the individuals involved, I'm not going to specify exactly some of the things that are not legal on those cars. But needless to say, there are quite a few things on that car that had the federal government been paying a little bit more attention at that time, may have needed to go back to the drawing board on. But I look at that kind of a thing not as a flaw, but as that's a plus. That's one of the things that makes the car so cool. It makes the story of the car so rich. Breaking down production, there are a total of 60 road cars, 60 road car chassis. Of those 60, 21 are naturally aspirated cars, which is my personal favorite flavor. Obviously, people immediately go to, oh, the twin turbo, more power, more excitement. Yeah, sure, why not? But the production volume of the NA cars make it incredibly compelling for me, one. Two, the NA cars are extremely well built and easy to use. The turbo cars are a lot. They are wild. Third, again, I love a homologation car. I love anything that gets me as close to a race car with a license plate on it as possible. And the NA cars are so closely related to those race cars. When you speak with Billy Talley, he will tell you that internally the motors are basically identical. The chassis are basically identical. I mean, the differences between the NA cars and the race cars are very small. To have a car from the early 2000s that is so closely related to its race car sibling is almost unheard of. I mean, even other GT1 homologation cars of that era, namely the MC12. The MC12 is, and I love an MC12, incredible car. Now, that's a whole other discussion. But the MC12 is very different from its race car sibling, while the naturally aspirated S7 is very closely related. I've had the privilege of transacting 3 of the cars. What's also so compelling about these cars, especially when you talk about the early ones, no two are exactly the same. And I'm not just talking about the spec. No. I mean, these are proper boutique hand-built cars. They were figuring new things out on every single car, especially on the early cars. No two were alike. They were bringing in new suppliers to refine the production process, which meant that every single one was a little bit different from the next. And when you look back on cars that are the most significant, cars that are the most cherished, they are cars that are not uniform. They are cars that have that boutique-y, hand-built, no two are quite alike character about them. And that's what really makes them special. And the S7 has that in spades. So look, everyone has infinite number of reasons to buy a classic or exotic car. My reasons for buying cars may be different than others, but I love a car that's truly unique, very hand-built, with serious competition pedigree. And the Saleen S7 aggressively checks those boxes and many more that thrill me when I'm looking for a car.
This month, the VINwiki content is brought to you by Auto Tempest. Auto Tempest has supported VINwiki for years, Car Trek as well, all of our friends, but what we really love them for is that it is the most powerful way to shop for your next car. They compile all the results from all the major listing sites into one place. Autotempest.com, all the cars, one search. That means you get to all the deep, dark corners of the internet to find the exact car that you're looking for as fast and efficiently and powerfully as possible. You also get to see how it stacks up against all the other cars like it that are for sale around the country. And so check them out now at the link in the description below to shop for your next car with Auto Tempest and thank them for their ongoing support of VINwiki.